Lighthouse. Bismillah, walhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalam, ala Rasulullah, wa ala alihi wa ashabihi, wa man wala, wa ba'ad. So we are on page 8 in the Mosque, and the Arabic Quranic 8 looks like a upside down V. So the 7 and the 8 takes you a minute to, sometimes you look at the 7, you'll think it's an 8. Because the 7 looks like a V, and the 8 looks like an upside down V. And the way I remembered it was by saying 7 up. Because the V, when it's right side up, it's the number 7 in the Mus'haf. Also, the 2 and the 6, they look like each other, but they're inverted. So sometimes you think something is 60 when it's actually 20. Or the 5, the number 5 in the Mus'haf looks like a 0, a big 0. So sometimes you'll see 5, you'll see 25, and you might think it's actually 60, right? And then the 0 looks like a dot, just like a period or a dot. So Arabic numerals, that's what we use in English. But what they mean by Arabic numerals is that they have a 0, as opposed to Roman numerals, they didn't have a 0. And it was like line, 4 lines was 4, and then the 5th one was a V. And then V in a line is 5, like that. Roman numerals, when you want to write out long numbers, it got very, very long. Whereas in Arabic, it's easy. You say 10, you just put 1 dot, or 1 0 in English. You know what I'm saying? And so on and so forth. So we are on page 8 in the Mus'haf, which starts out, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, إذ نجيناكم من أهل فرعون يسمونكم سوء العذاب يذبحون أبناءكم ويستحيون نساءكم وفي ذلكم بلاء من ربكم عظيم. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He continues talking to the children of Israel, the Bani Israel. And He tells them, He reminds them that He saved them from Pharaoh. And Pharaoh is the name of all of the disbelieving kings of Egypt, right? But this particular Pharaoh, some people say is Ramses or Ramesses II, right? So these disbelieving kings, they weren't Muslim for the most part. Most of the pharaohs of Egypt weren't Muslim, with the exception of maybe Akhenaten, king named Akhenaten, who believed in one God. And he's the only king that's buried on the eastern side of the Nile, right? He disbelieved in the other, and he wanted to make the official religion of Egypt monotheism. And so he was actually assassinated. The priest and all of the hierarchy, the religious hierarchy, was like, he's trying to turn all of the gods into one. We ain't getting with that. So they actually assassinated him. And his son was King Tut, right? Everybody, when I was like maybe 15 or something, 12, maybe even 9, they brought King Tut's remains to the United States, and they did tours all over the country because his remains was discovered. I don't know when they was discovered, but it had to have been in the 20th century in Egypt. And it was a vast tomb of King Tut. And he had all of these different like golden statues that was buried with him. And so when I was a kid, my mom took me to the museum, me and my sisters, and we saw King Tut's tomb. in San Francisco. Know what I'm saying? So Akhenaten, no, he was a believing, from what we know, king. He believed in one God, right? But most of the other kings, they didn't. The pharaohs of Egypt, they didn't believe in one God. They actually almost thought that they were God themselves. Yes.
I thought pharaohs was like the worst of people.
Exactly.
So if he was a Muslim, how was he a pharaoh?
So Akhenaten, he was the king of Egypt. His title was Pharaoh, but that's not. So when we talk about, like for instance, when we read the story of Yusuf in the Quran, when it talks about Alaikum Salam, when it talks about the king of Egypt, whose title would have been Pharaoh, but since Yusuf was talking about the story of Yusuf, he was very different from the Pharaoh that dealt with Musa. So when the Quran talks about the king, the Pharaoh of Egypt, during the time of Yusuf, it doesn't say Pharaoh. It calls him Malik, which means king. Know what I'm saying? So when we say Pharaoh in general, religiously from the Quran, we're talking about the disbelievers. But historically, any king of Egypt was the Pharaoh of Egypt. So Akhenaten historically was the king of Egypt, or the Pharaoh of Egypt, but religiously he wasn't considered Pharaoh because he wasn't a disbeliever, right? Similar to the king in Yusuf's time. We can't say that the king in Yusuf's time was a disbeliever. We don't know for a fact if he believed or disbelieved, but we know that he aided Yusuf and he bear witness to the truth of Yusuf when Yusuf came with the truth in his time, right? So we don't know for a fact if he was a believer or disbeliever, but we know that Allah in the Quran, when he describes him, he doesn't call him Pharaoh. He just calls him king, right? So now we fast forward to Musa alayhi salatu wasalam. So before Musa was born, the Pharaoh, he had a dream. And in his dream, he saw Beitul Maqdis, which is in Jerusalem, Allah's house in Jerusalem. He saw a fire that started at Beitul Maqdis and it spread to Egypt and it burned all of the houses in Egypt except for the children of Israel, the Bani Israel. None of their houses were affected. So when Pharaoh, he talked to his wise men, his councils, you know, his think tank, they was like, oh, this dream right here means that somebody's going to come from the children of Israel. He's going to topple your rule. So basically, the plan is we just got to kill all of the men, all of the male children when they're born, and leave the women children alive. And this is what Allah, he reminds him of when he says, وَإِذْ نَجَّيْنَكُمْ مِنْ آلِ فِرْعَوْنَ يُسُمُّونَكُمْ سُوءَ الْعَذَابِ يُذَبِّحُونَ أَبْنَاءَكُمْ. He killed your sons, right? When they was born, he would have them killed. And this is, so there was no prophet of all of the prophets and messengers, more like the prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam in his messengership and his office of prophethood than Musa alayhi salatu wasalam. You see so many similarities. So you see that when Musa was sent, he was sent to a nation that used to kill the male children, right? It says, you dhabbihuna abna'akum. He slaughtered your male children, right? Wa yastahyuna nisa'akum. And he spared the women children, right? Now look at the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He was born into a nation that did the opposite, right? The Quraysh, they would slaughter the girl children and they would spare the boy children, right? This was the nation that the Prophet Muhammad he was born into, where the female children will be slaughtered by the Quraysh. In the same way that when Musa was born, the male children were being slaughtered by Pharaoh. So much so that the people, like the businessmen, the economic people, they went to the Pharaoh. They said, look, man, you killing off all of our workers. Because they used to make the children of Israel do all of the menial jobs in Egypt, right? Much like Latinos, when they come to the United States, the American, they're not afraid that they're going to take jobs from like their kids, right? Like, okay, my kid is going to be a doctor or a lawyer or engineer. The immigrants that come over here, what they call undocumented workers, for the most part, because they're not documented, they're not allowed to become doctors and lawyers, engineers, and that they work like, you go into the restaurant, you see the people in the back washing the dishes and cooking the food, right? It doesn't matter what kind of restaurant it is. The Chinese restaurant, you see Latinos not getting paid hardly anything in the back making the Chinese food. You go to an Italian restaurant, you look in the back, it's all Latinos. It's not one Italian in there cooking, right? And doing the dishes, sweeping up. The people who come out and actually take your order, they might be like college students going to school, white, black, you know what I'm saying? But the ones in the back, that's like Hector, Jose. They not getting paid to be back there that much. And if they not getting sick time, they not getting sick days, right? If they don't come to work, they don't get paid that day. And, like if you go to the fields, picking all of the strawberries on these farms, it's all undocumented immigrants, right? The people who you go to the halal Muslim restaurants. If you're an unemployed Muslim, you say, let me go get a job at the meat store. They're going to be like, you speak Spanish? You be like, I need to go get me a job. Let me go ask the Muslim. Muslim going to be like, oh, man, I only hire undocumented people because I don't want to pay them. Right? And these Muslims, right? Muslims supposed to be fair. Muslims supposed to be honest. But when it comes to the economics, they just like the Christians. They just like the Italians. They just like, look, man, I'm going to hire this guy. And I'm going to pay him like $5 an hour. And he going to have to work until from can't see in the morning to can't see at night. Ain't no 8-hour days on them jobs. You go to work when the sun ain't even up, before Fajr. And you quit Isha time. All they probably give you off 1 day a week. And then you bringing home $300 a week, $800 a week. In the Bay Area, you can't even really survive on what they paying them. Know what I'm saying? But that's what they paying them. Whether they Muslim, Christian, Jewish, they like, we don't care. We want these people to work because it's better for our bottom line. So when Donald Trump talk about, I'm going to build a wall and keep all these people out, that's just what he's telling us. Because the businessmen ain't going to let that happen. Because if they can't come over and do the work for pennies, they're going to have to hire Americans to do those jobs, and Americans ain't going to do those jobs for like, $5 an hour. You tell my son, who's 9, I'm going to give you a job making $5 an hour. He going to be like, nah, I'm cool. You can't do nothing with $5, Dad. You know what I'm saying? So Donald Trump is fanning the flames of patriotism, right? We gonna make America great again. There ain't no way they gonna stop. In his hotels, he got undocumented Mexicans working in his hotels, or he wouldn't have a hotel. Know what I'm saying? Like, that's the economic system of America, is who can we exploit. In the same way, in the time of Pharaoh, that's what they was doing with the children of Israel. So like, they went to Pharaoh, they said, you can't keep killing off all of the boys, man, because all of our workers is getting old, and we don't have nobody to replace them with. So Pharaoh said, I'll have a compromise, right? I'll kill off 1 year, and I'll spare them 1 year. And then I'll kill them off the next year. So every other year, he would kill the children, right? The boys. He always spared the girls. Know what I'm saying? And so when Moses was born, alayhi salatu wasalam, it was the year when he was killing the boys. When his brother Harun was born, it was the year when they were sparing the boys. And that's why he had a brother who didn't get killed. Know what I'm saying? And so this was like a severe punishment, right? Pharaoh would send out his nurses and his midwives. They would deliver all the babies, just like in America, right? African Americans as a minority, we don't work in the hospitals. We're not the doctors for the most part, right? So if they pass something saying take out all of the male babies, we send our pregnant women to Kaiser. So we wouldn't even know. We would just be like, all of our boys done died off. It wouldn't even be a thing that we could even fight against it unless we did like Moses' mom. Moses' mom, she hid her pregnancy. And she was a small woman. So, you small woman, like Brenda's got a baby. You wear a big coat that people don't even know. Know what I'm saying? You had a baby on your own. Know what I'm saying? Don't know what to throw away and what to keep. Know what I'm saying? Brenda brought the baby up and threw him in the trash heap. Know what I'm saying? But so she had Moses, and then when he would send around his people to check the houses, the backyard of her house was the Nile, and it was these long reefs that would grow. So she made a basket of those reefs, would put the baby in that basket, tie it to a rope, and then just send it out into the Nile. So when they would come out and look, the basket looked like the reefs. So he would be camouflaged. And then when the spies left, she would pull the rope back in. One time she forgot to tie the rope, and she put the baby in, and the Pharaoh's house was actually against the current, right? So you would think when you put the baby in, he would float downriver away from the Pharaoh's house. But he actually floated upriver against the current and ended up in the house of the Pharaoh. And Pharaoh took the baby in, right? So the main one that he was trying to prevent, he raised in his own house. And this is why we shouldn't never, no matter what dastardly